Should my kids call me mom or dad? This question filled my mind just as I decided to transition. Back then, it was hard to decide and very confusing. Now there is no such issue. My kids just call me on the playground dad, and then people can see as a tall 33-year-old woman comes to them. For others it may be confusing, but not for me and my kids. Hi, I'm Kira, a transgender woman and counselor specializing in transgender care. Usually I write science-based articles or publish interviews with members of our community. But today I want to share my own personal experience of a trans woman and a parent of 2 kids. Now let's look deeper into the topic of coming out to kids, of choosing your name and pronouns, and how your relationships with kids may change. I have 2 boys, aged 9 and 4 from my previous marriage. I'm co-parenting with my ex-wife, but for a year we live separately. I built relationships with my kids following all traditional dogmas. We've spent a lot of time together doing male stuff, like woodworking, racing radio-controlled cars, playing video games, and having play fights. This part of my relationships wasn't solely forced by societal norms of a typical fatherhood, because I genuinely enjoyed these moments. At the same time, I had motherly feelings for my kids. I enjoyed taking care of them when they were born. I gave them safe space to show their emotions, and I had a deep sense of responsibility for their well-being. At that time, I didn't have an explanation for such a mixture of parental feelings, but I knew they weren't typical. It never made me feel negative about it, but from time to time I asked myself a question: is having both roles considered normal? When I started transition a year and a half ago, my biggest fears, as for many transgender people, were about how my relationships with my closest ones, especially with my kids, were going to change. Imagination was drawing all possible outcomes, with rapid switch from positive to negative and back. It was a period of complete uncertainty and anxiety. I never had doubts that the steps of transition and coming out to my kids were necessary. But the fear of bad scenarios was dragging me back. My decision to transition took me a short time, because I knew what I wanted and that there is no way back. Actually, that way back was a way to nowhere, to the darkest part of my life. In my plan of transition, medical and social parts should have been done almost simultaneously. I knew that I don't want to hide changes that I'm going through, and I will be open and clear about my new life with my loved ones. 2 weeks before starting HRT, I had a talk with my oldest son. Telling an 8-year-old child about gender dysphoria, hormone replacement therapy, or the process of transition wasn't the right thing to do. So I spoke to him in his own language. He's a big fan of cars who's into technical stuff, so I used it in our conversation. When I did my research about HRT, I remembered one phrase: hormones are the fuel for body and brain. It clicked. If the hormones are fuel, then people can be seen as cars. If the fuel is wrong, then the car will easily break and won't go anywhere. During one of our walks to the playground, I told him about this idea. Men and women can be seen as cars who run on either male or female fuel. This fuel is called hormones. I'm a car who looks like a male one, but has a different engine that should run on a female fuel. Doctors looked under my hood and told that I should change my male fuel to a female one. It would make me function better, be faster, and brake less often. At the same time, I will slowly start to look different and turn into a female car. He understood this concept immediately and asked a lot of questions about the changes that would happen. My answer was simple. Look around yourself at other women, how they look, how they sound, how they dressed, how they behave. I will look similar, my hair will grow, I will wear female clothes, and my voice will change to a feminine one. The only thing that will never change is my love and feelings for you and your younger brother. We'll still spend time together, we'll play games, and we'll make wooden furniture. In the end he said, yes, sure, I'll support you if it will make you happy. May I go and play? It was the easiest coming out to anyone, and it made me learn a lot of stuff from my own child. Because of his young age, he hadn't yet felt big pressure from society. Gender stereotypes weren't deeply ingrained in him. He cared only about the things that would directly impact him and how I would feel. Coming out to my younger son happened 2 months later, when I went out for the first time presenting as a woman. At first he laughed at me wearing a skirt and makeup, because it was something unusual for him. But pretty soon he became comfortable and hugged me. This day was also the first time when I experienced stares from people in the public. My biggest concern wasn't about me being judged, but more about the comfort and safety of my kids. They both did a great job with the first part. They never showed any discomfort while being with me. Talking about safety, it was my responsibility, and I did everything within my power not to put them even in the slightest danger because of the way how I presented. Now there are no such issues. People just see two boys walking with their mom. At least they think that way until they hear them calling me dad. Mom or dad? That was one of the questions in the beginning of my transition that now is not important for me at all, though it took me some time to think about. Should my kids call me dad or switch to mom? Looking deep into why it was important for me back then, I see a big impact of gender stereotypes and desire to fully be a woman in all aspects. It was more about labels rather than actual changes. While the choice wasn't made yet, my kids called me by my name for a short time, Kira. Yes, it felt affirming to hear my own kids calling me by my chosen female name, but at the same time I had the feeling of losing parental connection with them. I live in Europe where cultural norms teach kids to call their parents mom or dad. Using name while referring to a parent is uncommon and builds a distance. I didn't want to lose connection with them because of my changes. I had a talk with both of them where I asked them how do they prefer to call me, mom or dad. Both of them said dad, which they still use with some rare exceptions. I told them that they are free to call me either way. If in certain situations in public they feel more comfortable calling me mom, they can do it. Does it make me feel bad or dysphoric when they call me either way? No, it's just something that works for me and my kids, and they have the full right to decide for themselves. I'm not trying to find validation of my looks or progress in transition from the way how they refer to me. Alongside the topic of names often comes the topic of pronouns. Being called by all pronouns may hurt most transgender people, especially when it comes from the closest ones. My kids were the first ones who started using she/her pronouns for me. It took them only several days to switch completely. They respected my decision despite not yet having a fully formed concept of gender. It was another thing that surprised me and taught me a lot about true acceptance. One characteristic kids have, and often lose in adulthood, is their straightforwardness. They ask questions that adults might be ashamed to ask. They say things the way they see them, and they talk genuinely. That may make feel some adults a bit uncomfortable, but kids almost never have bad intentions of hurting, insulting, or showing disrespect. Their minds are clear, and societal norms and rules are not fully ingrained in them. From time to time I had talks with my older son when he saw any changes in me, like doing hair extensions or having facial feminization surgery. I was always happy to have these talks with him because I knew he is the only person who will tell me the truth besides my fiancé. Early in my transition he could say, yes, you start to look like a woman, but not yet. Or, your voice sounds male. Or, I still can see your facial hair. Some things I couldn't see myself, some I didn't want. But I knew he had no bad intentions. It was like looking in the mirror. It helped me a lot, and I'm grateful for this opportunity. During our last talk, he said, Dad, you're a woman. My younger son mostly doesn't remember me before transition. There are only certain remnants in his mind of how I sounded and looked like. He sees old pictures taken a couple of years ago, and he knows that this person on the photo is me only because his older brother or I tell him. For him, Dad is the current me, my name is Kira, and I'm she. For some conservatives, kids calling Dad a woman who looks like their mom and using female pronouns might be confusing. It goes against all the stereotypes ingrained in a conservative mind. Mom is a woman, Dad is a man. Well, not always. For me, it would have been very hypocritical to get out of my previous life formed by stereotypes and start a new one with a new set of stereotypes. Transition at its core is about listening to yourself, understanding what works for you, and putting your own values first. It would have been even more hypocritical to push any of these stereotypes on my kids. I strive for them to be more open-minded, understanding, accepting, and to listen, both to others and to themselves. Transition is never about getting rid of old habits and turning them 180 degrees. It's about starting new life from scratch the way you want it. It's about getting the blank canvas and choosing the colors you like. some things I like from my previous life and want to keep them, like woodworking, talking about cars with my kids, and hearing them call me dad on the playground. Thank you for being with me. Please subscribe, hit the like button, and see you soon in my next video. Bye.